Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our Neurodiverse World. We have another awesome guest, of course. And if you're watching this, check out my fancy new glasses. I just gotta show them off. See, look, aren't they gorgeous? They're X-Men. Just nostalgia. Anyways, let's get to meeting our guest.
Love X-Men, and actually I use that as a kind of like a tool when I'm talking to kids. So remind me to talk about it.
Yeah, I love X-Men. When I was little, we would always play it. Like, we'd be at my Nana's house and Saturday morning cartoons. Me, my brother, my cousins, we'd all be around watching it.
So my name is Rooz. I'm ADHD. So if I forget anything, please, I don't mind you repeating a question. I think I did right now. But I'm an ADHD coach. I was diagnosed multiple times in my life, and I think in 2015 or 16 is when I finally accepted that I have ADHD, and it took many years after that to realize that I need to do something about it. Just therapy
Okay.
and meds is not going to, get me where I want.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Okay, so let's take this back a little bit. So, okay, you ADHD diagnosed, whatever, but who are you?
Who am I? In what way? Because remember,
And
if it's an
like,
ADHD, I don't want to take 35 minutes sitting here talking about myself.
but that's pretty much what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who who am I? Um, in what way? Give me some more context.
Okay, so if somebody asks me that, I say that I've got kids. More importantly, I have pets.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
I'm a father of one, lovely girl. She is definitely ADHD. I saw traits of it when she was 6, 7 months, which
Okay.
kind of like really like you remember when you're living it yourself, you see right. And I wasn't even educated that much about it.
Okay.
And then as she grew up, we started seeing more signs, more signs, more signs. And I think having my wife as a therapist and our friends that are therapists, and when they hang out with us, it was like, yeah, every year passed by. Yep. And this year we have literally accepted it. I mean, we've accepted
Oh,
it a long
wow.
time ago, but
Oh, yeah.
my wife is a therapist. I met her in 2009. And I remember the first thing that she said right after we met, she was like, "You're giving me a lot of information. Do you need to share all of that?" And I think she tried to,
Oversharing. Wow.
but I think she did try to do even therapy there because the first thing that she said, she's like, "If you want to date me, you have to put your cigarettes away."
Mm,
So yeah,
I like that.
I was born in Iran, and then my parents, before the revolution, they always wanted to come to the States,
Okay.
and I had asthma. I don't know why I still have asthma. Right after the war broke out in, I don't remember, 80, 81, my parents became more adamant for us to leave the country.
Yeah.
Safety, and my asthma was not under control. Long story short, we left in 1986, and I moved to the States with my mom, my uncle, my aunt, and my grandpa, and sometimes my grandma would come and visit. Without my dad for 5 years, and after 5 years, we went back because the war had ended, and my parents wanted me to become more traditional Iranian than, with, and I had a lot of hardship going when I went back home, and I
Hmm.
was in Iran
How
from
old were you ish? Rough estimate.
when I went back,
Sure. Yeah.
almost like 12.
Okay. So
And I
you
remember,
had been
I
here through some pretty formative friendship years.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I have never thought about that.
Yeah. Those are some really formative friendship years.
Wow. Yes.
I'm glad I could start you thinking about something different. Yes.
Mhm. Now I might have a group session about friendship this week with my
There you
lady.
go. I love it. Do it.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
Do it. Okay. So then you moved back,
I
and
moved
how
back
did that go?
and I was, well, not good because I grew up in the Midwest in Nebraska, pledging allegiance every day, Reagan years, totally kind of like, respecting. I mean, I grew up as an American. I literally started forgetting Farsi in a matter of a couple of months.
Yeah.
Um, but when I went back, the turmoil of the war had ended, but still the hatred toward America and Israel existed. Long story short, I started having trouble right at the beginning because I would refuse to walk over a flag. I would refuse to say down with America because I was still an American kid. And, everybody's
Yeah.
like, no, you're not American. You're back in Iran. You have to live around. And I'm like, no,
Well,
I
and
literally had my own. Yeah.
even though you were back there, again, I just keep thinking about that age and how important friends were at that age, and, like, they're telling you that where your friends were, who you left, the people that you really cared about were bad. That's kinda what it sounds like.
Yeah. Every time I tried to create friends, for some reason, we moved.
Oh,
First, yeah, like first grade to second grade, I was in one school, and then third grade, I was in another school, fourth grade in another school, and then when I went to Iran, because the thing is, nobody knew I had ADHD,
yeah.
right? They know I was exceptional, right? I was very smart. I learned when I went back, so I learned English in a matter of a couple of months.
Oh, nice.
Literally, when I came to the States, I just knew how to say hello, where's the restroom, some basic, literally words, not even
Yeah.
sentences. But I learned English in a way that my teacher, I remember my mom was crying. When is he going to learn? He's having a hard time. He's like, he's going to learn, and when he learns, he's going to stop talking Farsi with you guys at home. And she was
Yeah.
not ready for that. And that happened. And, anyways, um, every time I tried to create friends, we would move. And
Mm.
because I had a hard time adjusting, or
Yeah.
my academics would change. And my parents' solution for that is, let's take you out of this school, put you in another school because you need the help, right? And in their
Yeah.
mind at that time, that was the best solution.
Yeah. And I think that was, like, even when my kid, so he's 17 now, but even when he was younger, in those younger grades, that was kind of the mindset of the school. Well, you know what? We want to put him over here in this class instead of keeping a consistency and building on what they are, like the structure they knew, right? I think we now know, maybe, hopefully, that having kind of a consistency and a familiarity with our surroundings is super helpful for a lot of different either neurodiversities or disabilities or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long were you back there for?
10 years.
Okay, so then it was in your 20s that you came back?
I came back when I was like 21.
Okay. And was that your decision, your parents'?
It was a cry for help. Um,
Okay.
I I served the military not by choice, because in order to get a passport, that's what you have to do. I served,
Okay.
and then I didn't even finish that. Typical ADHD. I gave up halfway. Um, I got, what is it called? I forgot the word, but when you get discharged because I had asthma,
Okay, yeah.
and then I went to University of in Iran for 2 years to study in chemical engineering
Oh, wow.
style, but I didn't do good. I was not letting my parents know what the grades were because I was an adult, right? Like, who's
Yeah,
gonna come?
I get it.
And I started seeing a therapist because I was having a lot of behavioral challenges, and that
Mhm.
therapist kind of convinced my mom and dad to, because of the behavioral challenges, and I was becoming a little bit politically active. He was like, okay, it's time for this little guy, or big guy, whatever, at that
Yeah.
time to leave the country and become more go back to his life, right, that he wants. So then
Yeah.
I left Iran and I came to the States.
Okay. And so you came back to the States. Did you go on to university here at all?
Yes. So I went to college, and the interesting part is all the grades that I was failing in Iran suddenly started turning into A's. Now, keep in mind, not that the education system here is behind. No, actually, it was straight A's because a lot of my needs were being met. I had an actual lab that I could go and do chemistry labs and physics labs. So It was
Physically doing the activities.
hands-on. I was not forced to sit down and remember kind of like, integration or algorithms and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
memorize them. I was given I mean, we did have calculators and stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying. Is like we were, our system of education in Iran is a lot about memorization, remembering stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not great at using that.
Yeah.
I'm not great at
It's different, right? Like that, right? It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just different. And there's some people that thrive on memorizing stuff and some people that it just doesn't work. We got to get dirty with our hands and like do the activity of whatever it is. Okay. Well, that's good then that you kind of found your place, it sounds like.
and I
Okay, so oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so I got straight A's, was doing fantastic. Then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do engineering again. What kind of engineering? All right, I don't know. Chemistry is not good. My dad convinced me go and study something else. So I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I'll go and study industrial engineering.
Did your parents come with you when you moved back?
Yes,
Okay.
my dad did, and my mom was a couple of years behind, but then she.
Okay. Okay.
So I was here, studied industrial engineering for maybe 2 years. Again, the grades started dropping
Okay.
right after I got into the college because change of environment. Now that I look at it, is I went from a semester 16 weeks to quarter system, which is, I mean, in some ways it's great for ADHDers because you finish it fast, but by the time
Mhm.
I would move, midterms are here, finals are here, term
Yeah.
papers are due. And I was still in the party mode. I wanted to go out and have fun and stuff like that.
Yes.
And
Okay.
during that time is when I met my wife. And when I met her, actually, I was on probation, almost getting kicked out. And she was the
Oh,
only one that I shared the information with. And I said, hey, this is what's going on. And she said, what
yeah.
are you going to do? And I'm like, well, they're telling me if I get the straight, grades up, I can go back, but I can't study industrial engineering.
Yeah.
And she was like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I had fallen in love with her and I wanted to become a therapist. And then, everybody
Okay.
was against that. It's like, it's love, love, love. So, long story short, one of my professors kind of was like, hey, the fastest way that you can graduate and get out is we transfer some of the similar units to business operations. Long
Yeah.
story short, so I got a bachelor's in business operations.
Okay.
And right away after college, my mom convinced me that, you know, you need to become, okay, you're going to become an engineer, you're going to become a doctor, you need to get an MBA. And I'm like,
Okay.
I don't know what I need an MBA for. I mean, I was still having struggling finding a good job or a job that I liked or, that I
Yeah.
wanted to do. So I went to study to get my MBA in 2 years, and I got two MBAs, uh,
Okay.
3.6 or 3.8 GPA, graduated.
Nice.
I've had some, a lot of interesting jobs. A lot of them were kind of like startup positions as far
Yep.
as like, department and stuff goes. And, life happened. And, in 2016 is when I started kind of getting the grips of ADHD and how it was affecting me.
Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So, because by that point, you had already been through a lot. Like you had been through moves and not just local moves, like world moves. You had been through school, you had met somebody. Like there was a lot going on. So what actually prompted you? And I know earlier you had said that you had been diagnosed multiple times, which is the first time I've ever heard of that, which is kind of cool. So how did that let's go back to that comment just because I found it so interesting. How did that happen?
Well, from what I remembered is, and actually it's funny, is my mom passed in 2017. So we were going through her stuff and I found a business card of one of my first teachers. And on the back, she wrote down for her, and she wrote it in Farsi, trying to explain is that he might have ADHD or he might be, he's hyper, right?
Okay.
So my mom knew that as a kid. I was always a hyper kid. I was always running around, getting in trouble and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Started putting the puzzle together. When I was in 10th or 11th grade, my grades failed miserably. Like it was horrible.
Yeah.
My dad and mom took me to a therapist. It was the first time I saw, I think he was like a psychiatrist
Okay.
because he gave me, I think at this time, Ritalin based on the color of the pill and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It literally felt different. But it felt different in a way that, like, when they told me about the pill, like, it's like, oh, it's going to help you get A's on your test. And I was like,
Okay.
oh my God, super pill, let's take it. So I took it
Right.
and I took a test. The problem in the past was I would take the test and I would only finish, I would rush. I would be the first one out of the class. And
Okay. Yep. Been there, done
would
that.
skip, right? Where I would skip questions and stuff like that. This
Mm-hmm.
time, I took my sweet ass, sorry for cussing a little bit, but
That's okay.
my sweet ass time sitting there and taking the test, and I forgot that there is a clock, and I finished only page 1 and 2, so page 3 and 4 never got done.
Oh no. So I mean it helped, however, there's still time constraints.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
I was getting into an argument with the therapist, and those years that you're becoming a rebel and stuff like that. So my parents stopped the meds, never adjusted, and
Okay.
I think I was in 2004, 2005 when I met my wife. I knew I had challenges in life, and that's when I started seeking therapy
Okay.
professionally. And that's the first time I think the doctor gave me Adderall or some meds. I don't remember. And I
Yeah.
took it, and my coworkers were making fun of me. It was like, oh, like look at this, like that's like making derogatory comments. The R word. Oh, he's taking meds.
Yeah.
Look at the kid with the Ritalin. Anyways, stopped after a couple of months. I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, what drove me is my mom was diagnosed with cancer in 2008 or 7,
Oh.
something like that,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. But anyways, long story short, we knew it was a long battle. And in 2016, it really started taking it, like 15 and stuff like that. I started taking it for the
Yeah.
worst and stuff like that. And I had a very hard time at work. I had a new supervisor. I was promoted to a director level. I had a hard time performing, and my supervisor was a very, very micromanager. I mean,
Oh, I
I,
hate that.
yeah, I went from working for someone that didn't, just trusted me, which is not great because I was sweeping everything underneath the rug, and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, and I think in 2016, when I was having panic attacks and I was having all those issues, I started seeking therapy, and that was first revelation. Let's say that major one that my therapist and later on in life became kind of like a mentor. Uh,
Okay.
she opened my eyes. It's like you have ADHD definitely, and I think in the session 1 or session 2, she told me about the book by Dr. Ed Hallowell, Driven to Distraction.
Okay. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, so I got the book, never read it. Got the audiobook,
Shocking.
listened to a couple of chapters. It was all hitting home. It all started making sense.
Yes.
And life happened. And when my mom passed, literally, we had just found out that after years and years of trying having a baby, we weren't having a baby. And my wife was pregnant, lost mom. And then I came back literally 2 days, 3 days after my mom passed. I got written up for a lot of stuff that other people had done and left the company. Long story short, I don't want to get into a lot of that.
Yeah. But
I
a lot was going on.
A lot was going on
Yeah.
that ended up putting me in kind of like becoming paralyzed as far as like mental health goes. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't make simple decisions. I mean, I literally walked out into traffic. Like that's how bad it was. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
what I was doing. And
Yeah. I've definitely had those feelings before, those times where there's so much going on. You can't do anything. I feel like I'm just sort of a robot, just kind of going through walking from here to there, but I have no idea what's really happening because there's just too much happening and you can't process any of it.
I had a lot of emotions, but I didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And I was accused of a lot of stuff, so I was taking a lot of personal. Long story short, after going back to work after a year of taking time off, I worked for a very interesting kind of fast food company. Long story short, I say that a lot, by the way.
I was thinking that, but I was trying really hard not to say it out loud.
No, it's okay. I was doing my best to perform perfect. And the reason I use the word perfect is because, that's an ADHD trait, right? Being a perfectionist. Because
Yep.
I've always heard I was making a mistake. So every time I tried extra harder to be perfect, the perfectionism would be hyper focusing on the stuff that I didn't need to do, right? I still remember we had to do an inventory rollout of a new product. Instead of focusing on the product, I mean, there was formulas, there was data that existed, but I had to go and redo it all myself. And I was in the office for 48 hours straight up on the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Unnecessarily.
And I was medicated, very high dose of meds, and I was very, very hyper focused. I didn't know how to talk about my needs and tell my therapist what was going on. And in March of 2018, I was let go. They didn't fire me because I was lazy.
Yeah.
I was always afraid of this trauma that I'm going to get fired. And I think when they talked to me, I was about to like explode mentally. Like I wanted to cry, but I didn't know how to. And I was just like, the only thing I said is like, I literally have a baby. What am I supposed to do with insurance? And they're like, oh, we got here and that. And again, my others' needs instead of my own. I found a job in a couple of months, and I think that's when the needle broke the camel's back. Is at that company, the last company that I worked at. That all the traits just got worse. And I was trying to get back to the best of everything. I had lost a lot of weight. I wanted to go back there. I wanted to be the perfect dad. I wanted to be the perfect husband.
Yeah. So you've said a whole lot just in that last like 2 minutes. So I'm going to unpack a little bit for the audience. So first off, that perfectionism thing. Oh my goodness, I'm right there with you. And the hyper focusing on stuff that really you don't need to do. So I heard a saying, and I'm totally gonna butcher it, but the gist of it was that it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be done. Yes, it should be done well, but what is perfect? Right? It's because my perfect is different than your perfect is different than maybe a manager's perfect, right? And so, because I've definitely had some times where I'm trying so hard to make something so completely perfect that it will never be done. So that's just something that I wanted to share with the audience because you're the first. This is, I think, the first time that I've really heard somebody talk so much about that perfect syndrome. Like it's not a syndrome, but I'm just making that up. But I like it. It sounds good. Perfect syndrome. So it really does make us just kind of freeze into this one tunnel where there's other stuff that needs to get done. The other really big point that you were talking about was how you were putting everybody else first and you weren't focusing on your needs. And more specifically, you didn't know how to ask or to vocalize what those were. That is such an important point to make because I've definitely talked on the show before about, self-care and you have to take care of yourself and, you have to put yourself first at times. But how do you put yourself first when you can't even vocalize what it is that you need? That is a skill all in and of itself that I definitely went to therapy to learn how to do that. So don't get me wrong, guys. It's not an easy thing because if we are, raised in a way that we don't talk about certain things or, stuff your emotions down, just do what you got to do. My mom's favorite saying, and I love my mom, don't get me wrong, but was fake it till you make it. Well, so I didn't know how to unpack my feeling of anger or sadness or whatever because you slap a smile on and you fake it till you make it. It doesn't really work. Um, so I loved how you were saying that you didn't have the words, you didn't know how to vocalize what it was that your needs were. And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Randi-lee, here's another thing is that it's very important is I didn't know even what to ask for.
Yes.
When
So important.
recently I took Hallowell's course a year ago, and during his 1 week lecture and training for his ADHD 2.0 book, he's like, he's an MD, right? So a lot of people, like, my expectations was to go in there like he's talking about meds. But the first couple of days he was talking about therapy. Then he talked about education and coaching. And the last day he talked about meds in a very brief moment.
Yes.
And that
I
comes
love
along
that.
because when he talked about coaching, he's like education and coaching. If you don't know what your symptoms are, I mean, I didn't know what hyperfocus was. I just
Right?
know that I had this itch to sit on Excel and play around with the color coding and stuff like that and write these formulas.
Yes.
Now that I understand, now I can stop myself. Okay. But again, it took a lot of years to work on it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I believe around June, I have it in this book because that's when he signed my book when I was in the hospital.
Oh.
In in June or July, I became suicidal, I think. Um,
Mhm.
I wrote a manifest to my supervisor that you're the reason that I'm going to end my life because
Ooh.
you keep, I wish I could find that email one day just to read why. I'm now
Yeah,
curious. But anyway,
yeah.
long story short, I sent it to the wrong person. I don't know if I sent it to my wife or my therapist, something. And that day I went in there with intentions of being very open minded to seeing some change because I was under a PIP.
Yep.
While on Thursday, before I went into the PIP, I was told the word that triggered me was, and this was working for an institute that they are very heavily invested in protecting their employees because of a lot of threats that happens. I can't share the company's name and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or the verbiage that came out of her mouth was, if you sue me, if you shoot me, or if you blow me up, I don't believe in ADHD and you're being lazy.
Oh.
And that
Okay.
literally triggered me to a point that I'm like, I am a piece of shit. I am worthless. Even her,
Yeah.
she feels ADHD is an excuse. So maybe I'm just full of excuse. We were in San Diego that weekend. I remember now. When we came back, while driving, I called in sick. I literally, because I just wanted to do it. And
Yeah.
remembering the moments that I was driving home, because I wanted to hit the center divider, I didn't have the means of doing anything. Anyways, my wife called and she's like, "Hey, I got a nurse on the line. Just talk to her for a couple of minutes." And she started talking to me and made a couple of jokes, calmed me down. She's like, "Hey, you want to do it? It's your body. But why don't you just say goodbye to your daughter? You tell me your daughter is the most important thing, right?"
Yeah.
So I drove home and there was the police, of course, and my dad showed up and they took me to the hospital. I was there for 72 hours and I came out. And again, after a couple of days going to outpatient, I became suicidal again.
Yeah.
A trigger, and I was misdiagnosed with bipolar
Okay. That's a very common
because of
occurrence.
yeah, because a lot of the suicidal ideation that I had at that time,
Yeah.
and the meds that they gave me turned me into a zombie. Literally, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And once I started recovering, a couple of years before that, my therapist, which at that point I had changed, is now was becoming my mentor. She's like, you need to get you need to get a coach. You need to get an executive function coach. And I'm like, what is that? I looked into it. I'm like, why do I want to spend money on this when I have a therapist?
Yeah.
And it was the best decision that I made because it literally helped me change my life.
Oh,
And
good.
my wife's word was, "You don't need to go back to work. Help me with my practice." She was, doing full-time private practice.
Okay.
And then I'm like, "I want to do something in mental health."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do whatever you want. I'm like, I'm not just going to go get a master's or a PhD. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I've done it once. I have so much student debt, student loans.
Right? Yeah.
And I found the path of coaching. I talked to the owner of ADDCA, David Gurick, and I
Okay.
fell in love with his comments. And he was there in the same path that I was. He was a former marketing director. He has an MBA. So um, I felt it was meant to be. I started working with myself and finding my own coach. And
Okay.
started going through the transformation, taking classes, learning a lot about ADHD. And it was eye opening. Like I was like, whoa, whoa, this
Yeah.
is whoa.
I think it's so important that we, like, whatever you're going through, you research it. And sometimes people are like, "Oh, but Google, that's gonna take you down a rabbit hole of you're dying." Um, so be careful what you're reading, obviously. But I think it's so important to understand it, not just from a doctor telling you or a therapist telling you, but reading about it. Like when my kid was diagnosed with autism, I read the crap out of everything, and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, I probably have that too." And it turns out I do. But I wouldn't have ever kind of made that connection until I started going, "Oh, this is," and you're talking about executive functioning. "Oh, this is what that is. Oh, the hyper focus, the perfection, all these different little things, um, all coming together." But I wouldn't have known that had I just listened to what a doctor told me or what a teacher told me it is. I really needed to get down into the research of it all and read about it. And there are some awesome books. One of the books that really helped me when my kid was going through tons of meltdowns, um, is called the Explosive Child, maybe?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Really, really good book because it really shows that, kids aren't, and it triggered me because you were saying how your old boss was saying, "Oh, ADHD, I don't believe in that." There's people that were going, "Oh," to my kid when he'd be having a meltdown, which was a sensory overload thing. They'd be like, "Oh, he just he just wants to throw a temper tantrum because you're not giving him what he wants." I'm like, "Nope, that's not what happened at all." But until I read that book, I really was just I didn't know really what was going on. But that book was really eye-opening. So there's some great books, and I know you've mentioned a couple of them throughout the interview. So you gotta pick them up. There's some really good reads or listens. Audible's great
Yeah,
out
audio.
there.
Um,
Yeah.
and I was on the road this week, and usually I'm paying attention to something. I was like, you know what? Let me listen to one of my old, you know, instructors, and I was listening to it, and all the stuff that you just mentioned right now is like what we see on the surface. The kid is crying, the kid is throwing a tantrum, or something like that. We don't see where that lack of social skills or executive function or whatever the challenge is, because that's how they know how to express themselves, right?
Yeah.
I,
Exactly.
I'm trying to work with my daughter. She's 6. To like, hey, there's a better way of communication instead of crying every time you need something. The story that I
Mhm.
tell her is like, hey, babies, they don't know how to talk, so they cry, right? But the challenge with her is that she, at the moment, and again, I'm talking this right now that I'm not emotionally invested, right? Probably at the moment that I'm heated, I am all over the place.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but a couple of weeks ago, my own coach was talking to my wife, and we're talking about family, and she's like, the reason he gets angry when your daughter cries is he's having sensory overload.
Yeah.
So I took that. I had forgotten, right? A lot of information. So
Yeah.
I told my daughter, when you cry, you know what happens in daddy's brain? It turns into mashed potato. And she started laughing about it. So now it's
Yeah.
like, Daddy, I don't want to turn your brain into mashed potato. But I'm like,
That's
okay,
cute.
what do you need? So now you're giving me a ready, a head start.
Yes. Oh, I like that. I know right now so I have a grandson. He's gonna be 4 soon.
You do not
And
have a grandson or a kid. I mean,
no,
you know,
no, this is a compliment, and no, I should not. But anyways, and so and he just had a baby sister born, on his dad's side. And so he kind of is going through this little phase that kids do when a baby is around them, where he's now starting to whine for things instead of using his words. And I say, Grammy doesn't understand that. Grammy only understands big boy words. And it kind of makes him stop going, oh yeah, I'm a big boy. Okay, I use my words. But it's like it is that having to stop and realize and not get frustrated, which is much easier said than done. But it takes a lot of time and practice. But it is reminding ourselves, oh yeah, we get sensory overload. They get sensory overload. They maybe don't have the words to express what they want, right? There's so much going on that and the thing is, whenever one person starts, it's really easy that other people, even if they don't have a neurodiversity, to get heated as well, right? And the worst thing you can do is say, oh, calm down. Oh, that just makes it worse. So, we've talked oodles. We're coming to the end of the show. I know it goes by so fast. But and you've shared so many really good, interesting points. Is there anything else? Excuse me. Is there anything else that you want to share on this topic before I let you kind of do some self-promotion?
Um, First of all, being compassionate to yourself. It's easily said than done, right? And again, a lot of ADHDers are raised with shame, right? I mean, you look at the pattern. You made a mistake. You're doing this wrong. I mean, I've tried my best not to. We put a label on it, but we don't, right? Like, don't put your legs up here. Don't do those. And I'm not saying not to discipline, right? Work on other ways. Because, like, hey, when you put your legs up on the table, this is how it looks. Do you think it's a good idea, right? Helping the kids understand and use logic, right? Again, easier said than done. But when we grow up with shame and we see all of the challenges that we have, it becomes hard to, first of all, believe in ourselves and be compassionate. Because we have just seen a pattern of negativity. We have seen or heard a pattern, and then those become beliefs. So when I have an adult come to me, is like, I don't have any, I don't believe in myself. I don't see my wins. I don't see it. It's hard for them to be positive.
Definitely.
My biggest advice is to seek help, whether it's a therapist, to get a psychiatrist, get educated, or even a coach, right? I'm not promoting myself right up front, but whatever you need, whatever you can afford, seek help. And I always tell people, remember, there's only 26% of their population that have been correctly diagnosed with ADHD. Once you get diagnosed, work on asking for help. I know it's very hard, right? We have a lot of shame. Oh, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's an investment that you're making to change your life.
Yes. Yeah.
I know.
So now I do want you to do some shameless self-promotion. So what is it that you've kind of talked about a tiny bit, but what is it that you do right now?
I became an ADHD coach after I saw how coaching was helping me, right? How I can manage my impulsivity, how I can manage writing a schedule and writing a to-do list and following it through, right?
Oh, that is so hard.
Being on time on appointments, right? Not perfect on everything. Oh, I won't lie. I was maybe a minute behind. I was putting food in my mouth because, my schedule is packed back to back. But when I started seeing the change, I wanted to do the same thing because that became my goal. My mission statement is very simple. Is if there's anyone out there looking for help, I see that as a way for me to redeem my life, because if I'm helping others, that they don't have to live through all the challenges that I went through, those dark moments, the moments that I felt that I'm the only person in this world and nobody understands me. If I can be anyone's, help, that just changes my day.
That is awesome. I love that. And what is it your business is called?
It's called Heal and Thrive Psychotherapy and Coaching.
Okay.
Our
And
website. Yeah, go ahead.
I was about to say, where do people find it? But then you were about to say
Okay,
website. So
you can
same
Google us.
wavelength.
You can Google us at heal-thrive.com. That's HEAL-THRIVE.com. We have two other wonderful coaches that are team members. We have therapists if you're in California. We have a very unique approach to coaching and therapy that we do. The ones that are in California, they can take advantage of both. But the ones that are all over the states, we take coaching to a different level. It's not only like once a month or 2 times or 3 times that we see you. There's all these other stuff that we provide. But if they're interested, book a free, session so I can give them some information about it.
Excellent. I love that. And do you do virtual?
I do virtual, and even though I have an office in south of California, Orange County, a lot of my clients rather do virtual.
Yes, that is wonderful. So one more time, the name of it is
Heal and Thrive Psychotherapy and Coaching. I almost forgot.
I was like, Heal and Thrive. There was more to it. Okay, there it is. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I love when my guests are just out there, we have such good conversations.
Yeah.
I love it. You had such a great experience. I mean, obviously not great at the time necessarily, but you had such a great experience to share, and I'm so glad that you are sharing it.
It's the journey at the end when you're looking at it as like, hey, I got here. It made me who I am.
Exactly. And thank you everybody for tuning in and listening again to another awesome episode of our Neurodiverse World. Be sure, of course, to tune in tomorrow morning because we will have another episode of the Write or Die Show. As well, if you have not already hit the like and subscribe button, I don't know what you're waiting for. That's just sad that you haven't. So do that right now. You can be sure also to check out our merch store. And 10% of the proceeds always goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And there was something else I was going to say, but now I don't remember. So it's okay though. Bye.